Living. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Avalon Springs Farm.
I hope the sign just fell over as you said that, but that's okay.
I'm Karen of Avalon Springs Farm. I have a guest artist and knitter with me today, Kathleen of Crackpot Woolworks. We are out in our backyard sitting 6 feet apart and abiding by our governor's rules for being an open business. Anyway, I'm gonna talk to you today about a couple of things. I'm involved in 2 shows. The first one is Casa Pinta, and that's a show that's all over the internet right now. Yay, yay, yay. It's got a new pattern. You can get the pattern during the dates of the show, but what you do to get the pattern is you buy some yarn, 2 full-length fingering weight 4-ounce skeins, and you make their hug shot pattern or the Criterion cowl. The hug shot is a triangle shawl, and Criterion is a cowl. And they do favor each other in terms of like stitch patterns and stuff. And then when you buy the yarn, I send you a code. Then you go open up your Ravelry site and you get the code. And Casa Pinta just announced that she is extending the time period in which you have to redeem the code. So that's now the 14th. And then the other show that I'm in is this one. Let me show you. The Fiber Art Studio Tour. Oh, you know what? I just noticed it says Tour de Fleece. That's the next event. What you need to see is the Fiber Art Studio Tour. And
Details.
yes, and it's little sheep. So if you go on Facebook, go to our Fiber Art Studio Tour and look for this little sheep. And there's a page and a group. And to be part of the show, join the group. That's why I'm wearing this particular shawl, because this is the one that was from 2018, and this one was made by Linda Minnick. And I now have it kitted up since it's after the show. But during the show, what people would do is drive around and go and like collect little minis. That's why I brought these out. But of course we've gone virtual. So what we're doing is we're getting little 5-packs of minis, and the theme is neutrals with a pop of color. And when you get your little 5-packs of minis, oh, you know what, Jenny, show them. This is our Ravelry page. So we're going to do a KAL in our Ravelry page for the pattern that's with the show at the end of the show. So I just want them to see what that looks like. And here is a close-up shot of the Facebook page and the Facebook group. And again, you're seeing that little sheepy guy. There we go. Cool. So if you see those, you're in the right place. And the pattern, oh, and here's the website. This is the Meet the Artist page. But you don't have to, okay, so there's just a scattering of little artists on the Meet the Artist page. But the pattern for the second show is this pattern. It's called Ticket to Anywhere. It's by Kristen Janik, and her business name is Mediaperuanna, all one word. Mediaperuanna, but no spaces, it's all one word. And she is a designer from Maryland, because essentially it's a Maryland show, and all the participants are celebrating, we're celebrating Maryland artists, fiber artists, and fiber farms. And she did this triangle shawl. So we're going to talk about that today too. Because it's Thursday, I am going to do a few little, what do they call them? Thrifty Thursday. This is my little Thrifty Thursday bundle. I've just started to post this, so if you go right this red hot second, I think the only one up there right now is this one. But this is chivalry yarn that you've gotten from me for a while in person, but because we're all now doing everything online, I am just starting to get this on the web. So in celebration of my organizational skills about uploading this to the web, I put it on my Thrifty Thursday discount for today. So for today you can get it a little bit off. And I'm starting with these 4 colors. I will add to them, but for about 24 hours these are going to be discounted. Now moving right along. Okay, Kathleen.
I'm sorry, I was playing with the yarn. You left me with a pile of yarn on the table.
Okay, do your thing again. Wait, okay, so these are the mini skeins that we're making into little, as I hug the yarn, I'm hugging the yarn, everybody. Okay, so these are the mini skeins, and different artists are creating little, okay, so mine are called Pendragon Whelps, and for all of those people who are just not crazy about all things ancient Celtic, a little whelp is a baby dragon. It's a baby dragon.
Why would they not like ancient Celts? It's crazy talk.
So
I was saying I like the whelp name. I think that's cute.
Oh, so yeah, because if your name is going to be after a, have a dragon in it, in the name, then shouldn't the little ones be whelps?
Yes.
Okay, so this was an example of neutrals with a pop of color. This is very bright. So you would not have to do the pattern in this very bright section. And you can play with them again.
Okay, sorry.
So, although, you know what I should do is I
Left
should...
me with a pile of yarn on the table. What did you expect to happen?
Okay, so now I should do this.
These are tough.
Yeah,
I'll
maybe I
trade
should
you.
do... Yeah, okay, should I... Yes, okay. Trade me. This is
I'll move
Facebook
these, I'm
Live.
sorry.
Are we allowed to be like completely crazy on
Sure, why not?
on Facebook Live? It's like, the next best thing to being on TV. Okay, wait a minute. You guys
Anything live is going to be crazy a little, right?
I think so. Yes. So even though you can't get the pattern until Saturday, this is not as... This is a much calmer, cooler, more neutral oriented version of the pattern.
Calmer's overrated.
I mean, and it is gorgeous. God, it's really pretty. I love these different sections of stitch work. Okay, so Kathleen,
Yes.
you had the inside scoop onto the pattern.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about its construction and how people will make it?
She has the pattern written in 7 distinct sections. And you can kind of tell from looking at it, each section has its own, has a very unique stitch
Signature.
design, yes. And then she also has sort of 7 distinctive color combinations where you're switching colors, but you're not switching color at the same point you're switching stitch. They kind of overlap each other, which makes it kind of cool. So they sort of flow one into the other. So like here you can see this was the very beginning stitch pattern and color. Well, we kept those colors going when we switched over to this second stitch pattern. And then we sort of tried to meld them here as you change the color. Yeah, sorry, it's not done or blocked yet, it's curly. But then there's a slow transition into the new set of colors. And it does that same thing, like the old colors bleed into the new design of each section.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah?
I am just so fascinated, but was this hard to do right here?
No.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I am so impressed.
It's actually a pretty traditional honeycomb.
Okay.
It looks that cool because of the fact that it uses 2 different colors. which is the only non-traditional part of it. So instead of doing the entire honeycomb with one yarn back and forth, where you're just looking at the texture, the fact that you do, because a honeycomb is generally like a 4-row stitch, basically. You're doing 2 rows of the neutral, that sort of bluish gray, and then 2 rows of that sort of brown variegated. And so when they interact like that in the traditional honeycomb, that's the look you're getting, is the kind of wild looking.
That has got to be some serious props to Mediaperuanna for thinking that up, because it is cool looking.
Someone
Yeah, it
asked
is
the
cool
question of what skill level is this?
Oh, I think it's rated as advanced beginner, isn't it? I think so.
I didn't look that close. I probably should have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably what I would have called it. It's not just knitting and purling back and forth, but it's not a whole lot more complicated than that.
Okay.
There are like your little sections where you have your unique stitch patterns. Here you have to be able to like your little eyelets. You're doing like a yarn over and then knit 2 together, which is not a complicated thing. It's just a thing a super beginner may never have done that before.
So that's why it's advanced beginner.
Right. So
Okay.
it's okay. You've done really well with knitting and purling up to now. It's time for you to take the next step.
Okay.
And it's not complicated new stitches, but you're adding to your repertoire, where you have something new and different you may not have done before.
It seems to me like between the sections that are changing in what they look like from the stitch pattern and in sections that are changing in what they are from the yarn, you're getting a lot of variety of the work done by the changing of the colors.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. That
And
also is pretty
funny
clever.
how as I went, I would be like, ooh, I like that. I like how that's coming out. And then the next part, I would be like, oh, I like that one even better. I was amazed at how much variety there was going on, how the changes were very...
So it looks like you've just... Okay, so this is just traditional knitting right in here.
in between.
Yes.
The beige one is
Oh, so that...
traditional knitting.
Yeah, so that just went Speedy Gonzales.
This
really
is actually
cool.
kind of a cool, this color part here, the color stripe, is, I personally have only ever done that on socks. I've done that stitch before, but only on socks. It's a garter slip where you knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one, and it gives you this, like the little line, like a little dash of yarn that's stretched across a whole stitch.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And I've only ever done that to make your, like the back of your socks to keep them from being baggy. Because your ankle kind of goes in at the back, so it makes it more like elasticy where it sucks in.
Okay.
But I think it's very cool that she used that same technique as a visual design element, where she's using it to make the little rows of dashes of lines across here. I think that's very cool looking.
And artistic.
It is very artistic, and I don't know that I would have thought of that, and I really like it.
And
I like the fact that it gives it a real texture where you have these rows of like dashes against the super plain regular knitting.
Okay. How will this block? I guess it'll block just like this.
Yeah.
It's just gonna, it's textured. This is textured.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, obviously the whole thing's still on the needles at the minute, so it's kind of all bunched up and whatever, but if you lay it out flat like this with your hands, you can see what it's gonna block like.
Yep. Yep. And you're into one final section now.
I think I am...
Well, not final.
Yeah.
I meant you've now moved into yet another
Yes.
design element.
I think I'm right at the end of section 5.
Okay.
And like I said, there's 7. But I think the last section or 2, you know, they get wider as you go because it's a triangle, so they get shorter also.
Okay.
Like fewer rows because it's a wider, each row is much longer.
So it takes you a little longer to finish a section.
Even though it's less rows.
Okay. Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Will you promise to join the knit along after the show?
Of course.
And we have to take some pictures of this and post them up there. I like the fact that your little stitch markers match the project.
Oh, thank you. She doesn't even call for stitch markers. I really kind of do that to keep myself honest. I tend to get lost and distracted easily. And if I stick a marker every 25 or 50 stitches, I can easily glance back and be like, okay, something she does really well in her pattern is she gives you a stitch count.
Okay.
You know, do these 5 rows, and this is how many stitches you should end up with on your needle at the end of it. And to keep myself honest that I haven't done something wrong, it's nice to be able to be like, oh yes, I do have 211 stitches.
Okay, you
and
keep matching back.
Right, I can glance very easily at this and be like, well, if I have a stitch marker every 50 stitches, that's 200. Okay, do I have 11 left on the side over here? Yes, I do.
Okay.
So that's where I am, and if I don't, then I've done something wrong.
Okay.
Someone asked, sorry if I missed this, but does the pattern come with the mini skeins?
So, good question. So what we're doing is there are going to be 14 vendors, and I think maybe 12 of them are yarn vendors. Well, or maybe it's 10. It's a lot of yarn vendors. And they're making up these little mini packs, and when you buy a mini pack or any amount of mini skeins, on my website I have 3 packs of mini skeins, 5 packs of mini skeins, and 6 packs. But anyway, if you buy a mini skein, you get a code so that you can get her pattern. And I think the way that she did it, I'm going to read the text exactly because that's a good question. I think what she did, it was really kind of nice. She said,
so the code makes the pattern free, but you have to use it within a certain time frame?
Yes.
Okay.
So the code will be free for the length, for a little bit longer than the show. It starts on Saturday morning when she publishes the pattern. But then also there's a second code that you will get, and that will give you another 25% off of anything in her pattern shop. So she'll have 2 codes out for that weekend.
And someone asked how many packs are needed.
Okay, so at first, and that's a really good question too, because we were talking about this at the beginning. So all the indie dyers were told to make mini skeins that were 100 yards each. There are a few mini skeins that we think that vary on that by a couple yards. Probably not a big deal. And I'm sure the discussion of what do you do if one mini skein is 3 yards longer than another mini skein. But this is a flexible pattern to like there's room for transition here. And the total thing, I think, takes about 1,000 yards. So this is going to get pretty big. And it says that when it's finished, it'll be about 68 inches wide by 30 inches deep. So that's the basic 1,000 yards, 68 by 30 inches. So that's why most of the vendors in the show are going to put out their little mini skein packs. Now I should probably put one together so I can show you like what would be a potential.
Sorry, I was playing again.
Okay, so let's see. One, two. There's a lighter gray. No, is that gray? No,
that is the light gray. That's the medium gray. Yeah.
And then 2. Okay, so like, oh no, that's 6. Okay, here we go.
Right. So if that were a 5-pack or this were a 5-pack, then I could buy the 2 5-packs and I would have my 10.
Yes.
Which would be 1,000 yards. So even if I wanted to buy a 5-pack like this from Avalon, and then I say I wanted to go over to Flying Goat and buy a 5-pack from her, and I liked the way the colors worked together between the 2, I could put the 2 5-packs together.
And there would be no rule that said you don't start with an Avalon skein and then go to a dancing leaf skein, or then go to a wild hair skein, or then,
Do most of the yarn people have singles too? What if I want to pick out all my own individuals?
So that's why I have those little smaller, like 3 packs of minis.
Oh, okay. So I could pick out like, okay, I want the 3-pack that has these 3 grays in it. But then I want to pick out the one that has, I like the obnoxious pink, so I would pick out the obnoxious pink.
Yes. Yeah,
So I could mix and match.
I totally get that. And I've been doing this show for a long time, so that's in my inventory. There will be some difference from shop to shop to shop. But the reason that we had to do it we still totally want to encourage people to mix up the fiber artwork from different indie dyers. That's the whole reason why you're doing this kind of design work, is so that you can create kind of a sentimental project from multiple designers. But and that it will work. That's why all the designers, all the yarn artists were told to make
all the mini skeins, no matter who you get them from, it's going to be the same weight of yarn and the same like rough length of yarn.
Yes, so that
so I can mix and match from different people.
And we kind of, like, if you were driving around in person, you would want to pick up a little mini from this artist and a little mini from that artist. But it doesn't make sense to mail you. The cost of mailing a single mini skein is about the price of the mini skein.
Right.
Bummer.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to just do them into little small packs.
That makes sense.
Not what you would need to do the whole thing, so that totally people could go out and mix them up. Mm-hmm. But that, on the other hand,
but if you wanted to go crazy, you could buy like a 5-pack from everybody, and then you could mix whatever you wanted, right? Or you could go in with the next door neighbor, and you guys could like auction off who gets which color, right?
You could go fight over coffee about your colors.
For sure.
I will say, if you have any extra minis, they're great for socks.
Yeah, that's true. They are.
Like,
they
if you
make
buy
really nice socks.
if you buy too many minis, do not worry. It's perfect. Like, 1 or 2 of these things are perfect for socks.
In fact, I can tell you from experience, I just filled an order for a lady who ordered like a case of socks, no joke, and all I used was minis.
Yes, she did.
Yes,
she did.
She wanted a whole bunch of, like, she likes little short socks, like little like right above your ankle. And I literally used a whole like shopping bag full of mini skeins, and they worked out perfectly.
And I have to say, not to toot Kathleen's horn, and mine too, whatever. But if you want to see what those socks look like, they're actually on YouTube.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot. They
yes,
are. Yes,
we did it.
A couple weeks ago, we put them on. Before I mailed them off.
Yes, at least most of the collection is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And those were all made from these little guys. So, and then we had this big conversation about and it comes up in this pattern too, the same conversation. You really get to see what dye work does in real life in a pattern. You know, like, that is not a solid gray, but it's a semi-solid. And then you get to, and people get scared to use variegated yarn because they're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with that? But then look how lovely that variegated yarn is.
I love how that came out, where it's like you said, it's not completely solid gray, but it gives the effect of a gray background it really makes, like, especially this sort of cherry color pop out.
And the same thing is going on over here in the other neutral base. You know, so if you're going to talk about a more warm color, brown neutral base, tans, browns, fawn, and then you do a variegated, and the same sort of like joyous little bing celebration happens.
Well, and we've talked about, I have obnoxious color opinions, but a lot of people that aren't into that, though, they can still use a color combo that's calmer and more
get
soothing, and they still get that color to stand out, but it's in a much milder. Yes, that's a good word for it. I personally like obnoxious colors, but that's, you know, that's a personal thing.
Okay, so this is Kathleen's, like...
Yes, exactly. You understand.
So if you want to know,
Like, if I'm always wearing blue jeans or black slacks, then I need to have something obnoxious on to make that stand out.
So this was a total challenge for Kathleen to work in such mild color tones.
In fact, I think when you handed me the bag, my immediate response to you was, oh my god, it's so beige.
But it did not turn
It came out beautiful. I actually really love the way, and I personally love the contrast in this part of the beige. It's just, it is beige. it's beige. I'm not a beige kind of a girl.
But I was really shocked in the end at the level of color activity when all you were doing was working with neutrals and,
Right, yeah.
and a pop of color.
Yeah. And that is, we've talked about it for years. That's a very personal thing. Some people really love to have that punch of color. Some people like as much obnoxious as you can get in one scarf or hat or whatever. And some people just want a little hint, a little, I'm just showing you a tiny smidgen of my personality in this, you know, where it's more like the beige and yellow. And it even has a beautiful light pink and almost like a gray color mixed into it with that variegated. But it is much milder, much calmer. It just depends on your personal
viewpoint.
Yeah. And sometimes even your mood for that day.
Yes.
Like what you put on in the morning could depend on
absolutely
if what I'm feeling like today. If I feel like doing backflips in the pasture, then maybe I want the obnoxious color combination. And if I feel like curling up in the window seat with a good book, maybe I want the brown and the yellow.
All right, Jenny, you have to pan over to the
Thank you.
Thank you. We would not be able to stay alive and in business if it weren't for that little truck. That little truck comes here every day, all the time. I thank that little truck.
And if you're like me, you get all excited when you hear the little truck because you're like, "Ooh, what come in the mail today? Maybe my yarn is here."
So, yeah. Okay, put him back on. Do you mind being on our Facebook post? We're saying thank you to the, I think the box got delivered earlier. But we're saying thank you to the post office for keeping our business alive. Yes. But thank you, post office, for keeping our business alive. Yes. Okay.
And I've been following along the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival Facebook page, and every day 10 people are on there going, "Oh my God, my package came today! Look at my yard! Look what I got!"
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know I'm not the only crazy person that's like waiting and gnawing on my fingernails waiting for my yarn.
Well, they come every day. So, I don't know, did we do a good video today, Jenny? What do you think? What did the people say? Did the people like our video?
Just very nice, wonderful things, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yay.
Yay. So, Saturday you can get Ticket to Anywhere. This was a sneak
I was going to say, and hopefully, possibly this might be finished and you can see the complete edition. But
yeah.
we'll see.
Well, you totally will see the completed one in the knit along.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, thank you guys for joining us.